I was also very pleased that to note that our bandwidth is more, at least for this week, for the 100% distance learning, has been more than adequate. And again, I'm not a superstitious person by any means, but we barely put a dent in it this week, and our systems were functioning. Next step, as we've talked about this week, Board of Education, in terms of backup, redundancies, contingency plans, how we might respond in the event that there's a technology failure, which inevitably will happen. What are our backup measures? And Mr. Brady and I are working through some of those contingency operations now. But again, very pleased to see that. I believe it was 1.2 gigabytes of capacity. We were coming in at the heaviest somewhere around 200 megabytes. So we barely moved the meter we didn't really move the needle this week as it related to bandwidth. That, of course, may change as students come into classrooms, but we've got some ideas to manage that. And I know that Mr. Brady has done an incredibly good job at ensuring that that aspect of our capacity will meet our needs. Also, as it relates to technology, we've done considerable distribution of supplies and equipment, as I just mentioned, to classrooms. But we've also distributed that technology and that equipment and supplies to our students as well. So this prior to, I would say last week, we had our principals had days scheduled with families where families could come in and pick up computers, Chromebooks, iPads for the purposes of online learning. And it is my understanding as of today that all of our students are appropriately equipped to do this work. We are seeing some upticks in enrollments for whatever reasons, and we can certainly speculate on that. But as we receive new students, we're doing everything possible to get them into classrooms. Although knowing that we have to adhere to certain social distancing guidelines, we're not able to necessarily immediately place students into physical spaces on Monday. But as we're able to balance those enrollments in classrooms, we will get our new enrollments, our new registrants in as quickly as we possibly can. The fourth topic I'd like to talk about is student and staff welfare. We've taken a trauma-based approach to instruction with an emphasis on social emotional learning. So many of the activities that students are engaged in with this week are really centered on reading stories or literature as it relates to students who or characters who might be engaged in some sort of crisis or resolving particular problems. And again, just reassuring students that it's okay if things are a little bit glitchy. In my blog post tomorrow, I'll certainly reemphasize that fact, which is at this point in time, guys, we're looking at sort of a crawl, walk, run model. We're really in the crawl phase right now, although we're crawling really fast. And I'm really I find it's very remarkable at the progress that we have made this week. But we aren't getting, our primary focus this week has not been necessarily on scholarship or academics. It's really been getting kids comfortable with this new modality. Attendance has been better than normal. All right, what is normal? Well, normal was the old days. I don't have a specific rate of attendance, but I would say, I can't say it was 100%, but boy, it sure seems like it was pretty close to 100%. And I got to say a big shout out, kudos to our teaching staff, who on the night before were out making phone calls and making sure that those students who hadn't logged in or hadn't signed into Google Classroom, that these teachers were out there making those phone calls, engaging families, and making sure they could log on the night before and they weren't waiting for the day of to do that work. So I know our teachers have been leaning forward as it related to engaging with parents and making sure that they were ready to do the work this week. And again, we've had incredibly high level of attendance. I wouldn't also be so bold as to give you a percentage, but it was better than what I would say would be our normal rate of attendance during normal in-person instruction. Okay, so as you may have heard me allude to, our community connection with the Blauvelt Sons of Italy. I'm confident right now in saying that this is something that I want to speak publicly about. There were a lot of moving parts. It's something that I'm proud of. And it wasn't that I wasn't speaking about it because I thought we were doing something that wasn't necessarily underhanded. But because there were so many moving parts, and we wanted to make sure that all parties had some, that everything was going to work before I made this announcement. But this past week, we found a really valuable partner with our Blauvelt Sons of Italy and their commitment to our reopening process. And one of the things that we felt that could be a potential deal breaker in terms of going to an in-person instruction was our ability to provide childcare for our staff. Now, that may seem that may seem like something that may seem almost like a luxury, but it really isn't, because the way the law is written is that our staff really is entitled to take advantage of the FFCRA, which is legislation that allows folks to take a leave of absence in the event that they have child care concerns. And I felt that we had an obligation. First of all, I think at least in terms of there were a couple of different costs associated with it. There was the cost of losing a highly qualified teacher that would otherwise stay home. So there was a cost to our children who wouldn't be getting the best possible instruction necessarily. And then there was a financial cost associated with that as well, because then we would have to go out and have a physical. While that person wouldn't even be working at home, I don't believe. I think they would just be out. We would have to hire a substitute teacher while that person was involved in their own childcare. So in the event that we were able to provide some amelioration or to provide that benefit, wouldn't it be great if we could somehow reach out to our community and ask if there would be some folks that would be willing to help us. And Dr. Tessick reached out to Rob Ciparino, Sons of Italy, and I believe their board of directors got together. They unanimously believed that this was something that they wanted to commit to. And we are able to use their space on Van Wyck Road to provide childcare for our staff. And those students, there's Wi-Fi there. There's a nice space where kids can take a break, have lunch, but they can also do their distance learning there under the supervision of students at STAC who are currently working towards their teaching licensure. Also, it's under the supervision of Dr. Tessick, as well as our Family Engagement Center Coordinator, AJ Walker. So there's plenty of supervision. We also have another administrative intern there who's working there as well to provide additional supervision, and she is also a licensed educator as well. Our insurances certainly cover that. But the good news is that this is really not a significant financial impact to the taxpayers. This is all being done by by the teachers, for the teachers, and a nominal fee to make sure that, we compensate the Sons of Italy for their, or at least the teachers are able to, compensate the use of that space. But again, it's not being paid for using public money. It's being done off-site, which I think that's an important feature to mention. So it really does feel like a win-win. It's a win all the way around. But again, I always come back to what do we do? It had to be in the best interest of our students, and it is. And I believe it is in the best interest of our students to be able to provide that benefit to our teachers. And I think there's a residual benefit to our taxpayers as well, because we managed to do it in a way that wasn't didn't impact on our budget. So that I think was again a very creative and innovative solution. I just want to say thank you to my colleagues who were able to work closely, and thank the Sons of Italy for their commitment as well. Because I think that if those 30 or 40 teachers hadn't been able to come in, we would not have been able to open on Monday. So that's how thin those margins are in terms of staffing. So again, that was a big win for our district. The last category I want to talk about is resource management. PPE and health and safety measures have all been deployed. I don't want to overstate that. We've got as many. We will be fully deployed by the time the students and teachers. By the time the students come back physically on Monday. There's a couple of classrooms where I've seen that the polycarbonate shields have not been set up. But that will all happen. Most have been at this point. We have the temperature readers at the doors. They're being supervised by our security staff. And I think that rather than me going into sort of the daily operation or the daily workflow, we have put a good number of videos online that you can go to our YouTube channel and see what the day could look like in terms of flow and process, in terms of those different social distancing and safety protocols that we put into place. I don't want to get into too much of that tonight, but I'm confident that we are ready for students to return on Monday. And I want to say thank you to the staff, to the Board of Education, to our community partners, for all of their efforts. I want to say thank you to the parents for their patience and their input and their feedback as it related to the actual plan itself. The teachers for their support, for their input as it related to what they felt a good classroom might look like relating to this new normal. So I think by all accounts, while I can't say this was necessarily the best opening ever, I believe it's the best opening for us for now. And I'm very pleased, as you probably can tell, and I'm sure that some of you may have even heard you've gotten some feedback from community members as well as it relates to this highly unusual opening. So certainly if you want to share those out when, we'll have an opportunity to get some board discussion here later in the program, but certainly I would, anything you've heard that you'd like to share with me or the community, I would certainly welcome that. So that was our reopening. If there's any questions that you'd like to ask, I'd certainly be happy to address them.
So I switched the agenda around a little bit, and I put you before board announcements to give me an opportunity to just open up my agenda and so forth. But I appreciate the update in terms of the opening of school, and the Board of Education had an opportunity to tour the buildings just the other day to see that they were ready for the opening. And the couple of days that we were able to get through these 4 days before bringing students back was, I think, beneficial for all different reasons, all different aspects, whether it be the custodial and facility staff to get the buildings buttoned up and finished up, or for the teachers to get themselves acclimated to the classroom with the technology and everything. So I think these couple of days wound up being beneficial for everybody across the board. Also, I had the opportunity to address the staff as they came back, to welcome them back during the first couple of days. And for those that heard it, good. For those that didn't, I just the board welcomes everybody back to another school year that will have its challenges along the way, but appreciates everybody's attitude towards a positive focus on the challenges to make the best out of the opportunities that come before us. I recognize that everybody's coming back with a little bit of mixed emotions and trepidations, that they're excited to be out of their house and back into the classroom, back into the school building, back working in their environment, although their environment may not be what was there before, but they're receiving the environment with openness and receptiveness, with limited reservations. And I understand the reservations and the trepidations because of the concerns for everybody's health and well-being, whether it's their own individual well-being, or whether it's the students' well-being or family members that they have at home. So everybody's cognizant about personal safety and personal well-being, and collectively we'll get through this as best we can, and we'll face the challenges as a group. I know the teachers, the facility staff, the support staff have all been colleagues with one another and supporting one another, and that's all appreciated as well from the board's point of view. The board recognized that a lot of work was done over the summer by our staff, whether it be custodial and facility staff that work with the capital projects and the other normal things that they do throughout the summer to get the buildings ready, as well as all the additional work that had to be done to paint the boxes on the floor of the rooms, to the teachers know where to stand, to the spacings of the 6-foot social distancing. There was tremendously more work that was done to facilitate the opening, and again, the board appreciates all that effort that went into it. The committees that met over the summer to prepare for this new opening plan, that provided their guidance, their expertise, their opinions, that could all be utilized to develop the best plan that we felt would work for our district and to move us in the right direction. It's all appreciated. I understand that that we've sort of put the teachers in a box by painting the floor with where they can walk, where they can't walk, and put them behind a polycarbonate screen. But in reality, we all recognize that you're working out of the box. Everybody, I think, is working a little bit beyond their comfort zone and their elements, and we all understand it, and we appreciate the efforts that everybody's making towards doing the best we can under the circumstances we have. And that's all we can ask of you, and we appreciate what you're doing. The proactiveness to order the technology, order the supplies ahead of time has proved definitively beneficial, so that we can hand out the devices, and we have the devices ready for our students and our staff. And even being proactive and ordering some of the stuff back in early spring, due to the demand and the various other issues going on within the world, there's just some devices we can't get. But at the same token, we are far ahead of many other districts in terms of the devices that we've been able to procure and hand out. So again, I just want to thank the employees of the district as a whole, that your efforts to not go unrecognized, and the board is very appreciative of what it took to get us to where we are today, and everybody's looking forward to a successful school year as best it can be, with the students being educated, as our goal is to provide the education to our community. Does any other board members want to add anything? Any board members have any questions for Dr. Pritchard?
Nope.
Mr. Jacobs, just in the interest of time, I did have one other topic. I would like to, rather than me going through it openly, unless of course you want me to, I think it might be more productive if I just put it into your Board of Education report tomorrow. But if I could just give you a synopsis of it, I think for public record, I think it's probably good, a good caveat or a good sort of jumping off point from some of your comments that you had just said. If you could just give me about 5 minutes to just kind of go through very quickly what we should expect in terms of our goals for the year and in terms of establishing a new normal. Again, I promise I won't go into any detailed description of this, but I think that one thing that we typically do in September is that we at least say out loud what our goals are. And I think I think it's very, for me anyway, as the chief executive here, it's very therapeutic to sort of restart the year. This is our first Board of Education meeting for the year. I hope it's our last virtual Board of Education meeting. I hope that we'll be able to sit back in the same room again and do this goal setting together in person, because we're good at this. And I say we, I mean you, and I mean us. And I think that I think our work speaks to that. But just very quickly, if I could just restate those 5 focus areas. I promise to read them. I promise I will stay on script. But I think it's important for the people at home to hear this, because our goals haven't changed. I think we're going to talk a lot about what has changed, and we will talk a lot about what's different. And we're amazed by all the things, these new things. But what hasn't changed really is our strategic plan. We're still on track. We're still marching forward, even though we're on a different playing field. Our objectives are still the same. Again, we're still looking to increase graduation rates, college and career and civic readiness in accordance with our ESSA metrics. We didn't reduce our standards. We didn't lessen our expectations. And then we're also hoping to improve high school readiness, and we're going to improve that in accordance with our ESSA performance targets as it relates to focus area A. So that hasn't changed. So our commitment to those outcomes for our kids are the same. Our focus area B, we're going to continue to review, revise, and enhance practices that guide the district's efforts to recruit, evaluate, and retain high-quality staff members. I know that Dr. Lloyd is going to provide some critical targets and provide you as a Board of Education with those performance indicators. I think this year we're going to be looking, last year we did sort of a baseline year where we were looking at hiring practices, protocols as it relates to things like staff attendance, our performance review, our APPR, but also taking a look a little bit about, getting the best quality people, and also looking for ways to use data to direct staff diversification as well, to make sure that we're hiring people that are representative of our student body. So I know Joe's been working very closely with many of our staff and community to make those things happen. But we're going to, again, I will provide you with some more detailed review of those goals going forward. Our next focus area is as it relates to community relations and communications. This year, we're going to see improvements to the quality of our website platform. We are hopefully going to be able to implement a new student management system and parent portal. And I think, as you've just mentioned, Mr. Jacobs, we've really had a very aggressive posture in terms of leaning forward and procuring those technologies, that broadband capacity, as well as those systems that needed to be put into place so we can kind of move that forward. We've already started that work. We're going to do more of that this year. And we're going to continue to improve data management and analytics, particularly critical when we're talking about distance learning, and how is these new protocols and processes impacting on student success. More important now than ever. It's always been important. I think it's going to be even more critical because we could get really lost in the sauce here if we're not keeping track of those key performance indicators and measuring the impact of what we're doing, because what we're doing in many cases is very new. Next is focus area D. We'll continue to address student engagement targets in the areas of attendance, discipline, and overall school climate. Again, I think you had an opportunity to take a look at some of my goals and my last year's, my particular evaluation as it related to, my last annual evaluation. A lot of the language in there was centered on this response to COVID. Well, the response to COVID isn't an objective. That's a challenge. That's an impediment. That's a fact bearing on the problem. But that's not, dealing with COVID isn't our objective. Our objective is to, educate or elevate, engage, and inspire in the COVID environment. So we know that our climate, attendance, our community's confidence in the services that we provide. When I hear parents email me and say that they're going to send their kid to private school, or they're going to homeschool, I've got to be better. That we've got to provide our folks with a competitive option to their children's education, and we have to do it better than the alternatives, and we do. So I think a lot of that will bear out in the days and weeks ahead. But we have to be mindful of of the environment that we're living in, and we have to ensure that our students are engaged despite the environment. Lastly, our last area is equity, access, and opportunity for all students. In that particular segment, we're going to take a look at things like strategic deployment of our capital resources. I'm going to provide you with, I've already provided you with a list of workshop topics leading to how the board can become involved in planning for the strategic deployment of those capital resources. We're going to spend a lot of time on that because I think that as we go forward, it's going to become a little bit more capital and, educating public education in this COVID landscape is going to become a little more capital intensive. If nothing else, for the reasons we've all suggested: social distancing, facilities aspects, equipment, etc. So those are things that are going to require a lot of board input and a lot of nights ahead of us in workshops where we're going to determine what are the best deploy those resources. We want to advance educational equity by ensuring that all students have equitable access to the highest quality educational resources to prepare them for success in college, career, and citizenship. Again, we're talking about resource distribution. We got to keep an eye on that. We got to measure it. Not only because we're required to do that by law, but also because it's the right thing to do. And then lastly, and probably we could have started with this, is the district comprehensive safety plan that will provide an integrated approach to ensure the social, emotional, physical, developmental well-being, and environmental safety of all students, staff, and community members. Safety is going to be paramount now because if people get sick, none of this matters. If we can't keep our kids safe, if we can't keep our staff safe, if we can't keep ultimately our society safe by ensuring that we have a plan to keep people safe, none of this matters. So from an economic standpoint, from human development, human capital development standpoint, we can't keep ourselves healthy it's all for nothing. So we're going to have, we've already started that. We've done some of that work now, but we got to continue to stay on top of it, and we have to make it even better. So I'll end with that, but just our objectives, our goals are still lofty. Our aspirations are still every bit as important and achievable as they were in years past. And I don't want us to ever think that COVID is going to discourage or stop us from doing that. So I did need to say that tonight. I needed to say that because this is our first official board meeting of the year, our first official regular board education meeting of the year. And this is how we start with our goals, an expression of our goals. And I thank you for allowing me to do that publicly. So, and now with that, I'll yield to you, Mr. Jacobs, and pending any further questions, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other board questions for Dr. Pritchard? I see the head motion, so we'll move on. So the next agenda item is the public hearing on policy 5300, the code of conduct revisions. Due to various legislative changes, the need to address the pandemic, aspects that affect the code of conduct, and some other changes regarding electronic devices, and some other changes along the way as well. We've revised the code of conduct. It was reviewed by the policy committee. It was reviewed by legal, and a copy was provided to the board members for review. Does any board member have any comments to the revisions or the code of conduct in general? Seeing no indication, can I have a motion to approve the revised policy 5300 code of conduct?
Motion. A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So this would close then the public hearing on the revisions to policy 5300 code of conduct revisions. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 7 through 11? The superintendent's office consent agenda.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Any discussion? So, you're hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Is there any new business?
Wait, Ms. Stefani, I just wanted a point of order. I wasn't sure if Ms. Stefani was saying aye or if you had a question.
No, aye. Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I'm trying to balance between my one monitor that shows everybody and flipping from that display to my board agenda, because I don't have the luxury of two monitors where I am right now. So I'm flipping back and forth. So I appreciate that verification. So hearing no new business, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:24 p.m.?
Wait.
Wait, don't we have a consent agenda?
We did that under 7.
Okay, I thought we did that, we were going to do that separately. Okay.
No, we did the motion to approve the consent agenda items 7 to 11.
Oh, number 10, I see it.
and the superintendent's office consent addendum.
Okay, thanks. Got it.
Are you okay, Christine? I lost Christine.
I think we lost her. Yeah.
So I'll put the motion back on the table. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:24 p.m.?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
I thank everybody for their time.
Thank you.
Christine, you rejoined. You okay? You're muted, Christine. Christine, you're muted.
Yes, I'm okay. I just lost Wi-Fi, so I just came back in. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great night.